All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now recap the Ohio State Texas game from Friday. Ohio State will now be advancing to the national championship game to take on Notre Dame. And this was an entertaining game. You know, the playoffs for the NFL were pretty lackluster. The games were not very good, other than the Commanders Buccaneers game, which I was hoping Baker Mayfield would win that, but unfortunately that did not happen. But that was still a good game for the two college football playoff games. Those are two good games. Now, the Penn State Notre Dame game was probably you would probably lean towards that being the better of the two, but they still had their signature moments. And I do have a graphic to be the background of this segment here. Well, really the foreground, and that is the Jack Sawyer scoop and score for the touchdown late in the game. But both teams, both offenses struggled at certain points during the game. This was kind of a defensive game at certain points. Ohio State got off to a roaring start like they have these entire playoffs. They went right down the field on their first drive, and you thought, here we go again. This is gonna be another blowout, isn't it? Because Texas turned it over on downs to start the game. They went for it on 4th and 3, and they weren't able to convert. And yeah, Ohio State went 10 plays, 64 yards down the field, and Quinshon Junkins from 9 yards out scored a touchdown to make it 7-0 Buckeyes. But yeah, it took a little bit, well, really most of the first half for Texas to get something going, and then they finally got on the board towards the end of the first half. They went for it on 4th and 1. They had Arch Manning come into the game, and he was able to scramble for a first down. And it looked like maybe he might have fumbled on the play, but they ruled that he was down, and Texas picked up the first down. They got down to the Ohio State 18, and Jaden Blue, who had a couple of receiving touchdowns in this game, he caught the first touchdown. It was pretty much the same play. It was kind of a wheel route, and that led to a touchdown for Texas, and it happened later on in the game as well. This was an 18-yard touchdown, and yeah, so that tied the game. So then Ohio State, you got 29 seconds left. You could try to get into field goal range at least, and just I don't know what Texas defense is doing on this play, but they set up a screen to Henderson, the other running back, Travion Henderson, and he takes it to the house. So Ohio State goes into the half up 14-7, and this happened in AT&T Stadium, and it kind of reminded me of the play from when the Chiefs were playing the Cowboys. This was like 8 years ago, almost, and that was when it was before the end of the first half. This was when Alex Smith was the starting quarterback, and he just threw a little dump off to Tyreek Hill, and he had blockers ahead of him, and he was able to weave his way through and score a touchdown. It kind of reminded me of that. I mean, similar plays, but yeah, and that's what happened when they in the Cowboy Stadium. Those two plays happened in the Cowboy Stadium, so I thought that was funny there. So yeah, the Buckeyes were up 14-7 going into the half, but then they get the ball to start the second half, and Will Howard. This was one of his lone mistakes of the night, and that was the interception. But Texas didn't turn that into points. They didn't do anything with it. So no harm, no foul there. Ohio State then punted on their next drive, and then Texas, they went 12 plays, 72 yards. Quinn Ewers started to get into a little bit of a rhythm, and it was the same play. Wheel route to Blue, 26 yards on 3rd and 7, and that tied the game. Now, there were more punts in the third quarter there. So we went into the fourth quarter. Ohio State did go up 21-14. They went 13 plays, 88 yards. And Will Howard picked up a 4th and 2. That was a crucial play in the game. And he kind of pulled a Daniel Jones where, there was all green grass in front of him, and the turf monster got him. The turf monster tackled him. And that was for 18 yards. So that got them down to the Texas 16. And they eventually got down to the Texas 1. And Junkins scored his second touchdown of the game, and that made it 21-14. So then Texas is driving, and they get down to the Ohio State 6, and Ohio State's defense really stepped up here because Texas could have easily scored. They got to the 1-yard line, and Texas just denied them, or Ohio State denied them. So it was 3rd and 3 from the 6. There was a defensive pass interference, so that put the ball at the 2. Then there was another defensive pass interference, so that put them at the 1. They run it, don't get anything, and then they lose 7 yards on the next play. Then there was no gain. Quinn Ewers threw an incompletion. So they go for it on 4th and goal, and this is the signature play. Ewers is looking to throw it. He ends up getting sacked by Jack Sawyer, who was his roommate because they used to, be roommates at Ohio State. And he ends up returning it to the house for a touchdown, and that was pretty much it. That's pretty much how the game ended. And then Texas got the ball back, and then Ewers threw another pick, and then Ohio State was able to end it there. Will Howard had a good game, 24 of 33, 289 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Ohio State only ran the ball for 81 yards. Quinshon Junkins had 2 touchdowns in the game. Travion Henderson only 42 yards on the ground, but he was their second leading receiver. Carnell Tate was their leading receiver. He had 87 yards. Henderson had 75. Jeremiah Smith was one of their better players. 14 touchdowns on the season. He only had 1 catch for 3 yards. So he was a non-factor. Ohio State's defense, 4 sacks of Quinn Ewers, who, he put up decent numbers himself, 23 of 39, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. They only ran the ball for 58 yards. Quinn Ewers had negative 18 yards on the ground. Jaden Blue was their leading receiver, the running back, 5 receptions for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns. Matthew Golden, 2 for 51. Texas's defense, 2 sacks of Will Howard on the day. But yeah, Texas does fall short, and Ohio State, they move on. They've come a long way since that loss to Michigan. I know I've said that with their previous 2 games, but they really have come a long way, because that was that left a bad taste in their mouth. They were getting criticized up and down by the media, and they have looked really good in these playoffs, and they will be taking on Notre Dame, which is an interesting matchup. Tommy, our college football podcast host, did an evaluation of the players for both teams, and who has the better talent when comparing the two, and most of it goes to Ohio State. So when you hear that, you think, all right, well, it looks like Ohio State's going to probably win this game, right? But not so fast, though, because Notre Dame, when they took on Penn State last week, Penn State, I think people probably thought they were the better team, but Notre Dame was still able to pull it out. The coach over at Notre Dame has done a great job. He's supposedly NFL teams are trying to bring him in for an interview, but I think he's content with staying with Notre Dame. But who knows? Listen, money talks. So, but it does set up. This does set up an interesting matchup. So I wouldn't count out Notre Dame in this national championship game. I think it's going to be a good game, and we'll see what happens. But right now, Ohio State is playing really well. Will Howard may have had that one mistake with the interception, but it didn't cost him anything. This was a good game. These are 2 very good teams. And we'll see what happens with Quinn Ewers. Does he end up going somewhere else to play football next year, or does he? Because I don't believe he declared for the NFL draft yet. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, the signature play was obviously the Sawyer run back for the touchdown. That was the difference in the game. Ohio State, they really stood tall down near the goal line to prevent Texas from scoring, because who knows what would have happened if Texas would have scored there. But it was a very competitive game. I think really the play that, other than the Sawyer touchdown, you go back to the end of the first half where Ohio State was able to get a touchdown off of that screen pass, Henderson taking that to the house. Who knows if they don't score there, what happens, what transpires. So, yeah, no, it was a good game. Again, these 2 games leading up to the national championship game, very entertaining. College did better than the NFL this past weekend, in my opinion. Well, college football was like the appetizer, and then the entree was not very good. It was not very good. Um, so, we'll see what happens. The national championship game is on Monday, and we'll see how it goes. Should be a good game. Looking forward to it. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the Ohio State-Texas game. Any early predictions for the Ohio State-Notre Dame national championship game as well. Any thoughts you may have, let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about Justin Herbert and Jordan Love and their playoff performances from over the weekend. I know we went over the games yesterday, but I just wanted to get into, the criticism that these two guys, the heat that these guys have been put under now since, the weekend has happened, because there's been a lot of negative comments going towards these two guys over their performances in the postseason here. And I just wanted to get into all that, just get into that discussion and, why it's kind of an overreaction. But again, I do understand why they're receiving the criticism that they're getting at the moment. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.